working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles on today's headlines. Myanmar's junta foreign minister visited Thailand as regional powers tried to broker an end to 3 weeks of deadly unrest triggered by a military coup. Nearly 140 NGOs from 31 countries signed an open letter calling for the UN Security Council to urgently impose an arms embargo on Myanmar after the military coup there earlier this month. A first batch of 200,000 doses of China's Sinovac vaccines arrived in Thailand, with frontline health workers aimed to be the first group to receive the inoculation. And 10 orangutans have been airlifted back to their national habitat on Indonesia's Borneo island in the first release of the apes into the wild for a year due to the dangers of coronavirus infection. First, on the issue of the Myanmar crisis, Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi said that she has met with Foreign Minister Wuna Maungluin in Bangkok, where she expressed concerns about the safety and welfare of Myanmar citizens and reiterated the need for the inclusive democratic transition process. Take a look.
Pertemuan dengan Wuna akhirnya dilakukan di Bandara Don Muang, di mana hadir juga Menteri Luar Negeri Thailand. Dalam pertemuan yang saya lakukan dengan Wuna, saya menyampaikan secara konsisten posisi Indonesia. Kemudian safety and well-being of the people menjadi prioritas nomor 1. Oleh karena itu kita meminta semua pihak untuk menahan diri dan tidak menggunakan kekerasan untuk menghindari kemungkinan terjadinya korban dan pertumpahan darah. Indonesia juga terus menekankan pentingnya proses transisi demokrasi yang inklusif. Dan saya juga menyampaikan dalam pertemuan dengan Myanmar mengenai pentingnya akses dan kunjungan kemanusiaan atau humanitarian access and visits kepada para detainee. Menjalin komunikasi dengan semua pihak di Myanmar. Sekali lagi, dengan semua pihak di Myanmar, termasuk dengan pihak militer dan pihak CRPH, Committee of Representing Daum Su Hutau, atau dalam bahasa Inggrisnya CRPH.
The Myanmar junta's foreign minister seen here visited Thailand on Wednesday as regional powers tried to broker an end to 3 weeks of deadly unrest triggered by the military coup. Foreign Minister Wuna Maungluin held talks with his counterparts from Thailand and Indonesia in what was the first known face-to-face meeting between a senior junta member and foreign government officials. Earlier on Wednesday, the Indonesian embassy in Myanmar's commercial hub Yangon saw hundreds of protesters gathered for the second consecutive day. Anger that Jakarta was talking with the junta government. Officially named the State Administration Council, demonstrators carried signs reading, "Stop negotiating with them," and "Indonesia don't support dictator." Since the February coup, Myanmar has seen a torrent of anger and defiance from hundreds of thousands of protesters nationwide demanding the release of Aung San Suu Kyi. The military has justified its actions by alleging widespread electoral fraud in November's elections, which Suu Kyi's party had won in a landslide. The Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs on Wednesday raised alert level 2 in Myanmar in view of the developing critical situation in the country and has now advised Filipinos to prepare for possible evacuation. The DFA also said the alert level was hoisted as a precautionary measure to ensure the safety of the remaining 1,273 Filipinos there. The advisory entails restriction of non-essential movements, avoiding places of protest, and preparation for possible evacuation. The DFA also said, quote, only returning workers with existing contracts shall be allowed to travel in Myanmar. The agency also said also reiterated its advice to Filipinos in Myanmar to exercise due caution, monitor developments through reputable sources, avoid places of protests, and observe the guidance of the Philippine Embassy in Yangon. Myanmar's military detained State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi and several political leaders after staging a coup d'etat early February, prompting massive protests demanding their release. Late Saturday, reports said police and soldiers opened fire at the crowd in the second city, Mandalay, after 1,000 government employees refused to return to work at a major jetty site. At least 3 people were reportedly killed. Meanwhile, the United States led criticism of Malaysia for deporting more than 1,000 Myanmar nationals back to their military-ruled nation in defiance of a court order. The migrants, who activists say include vulnerable asylum seekers, departed on Tuesday on Myanmar Navy ships from a Malaysian military base just weeks after a coup. Rights groups had fiercely criticized the plan, and hours before the deportation, the Kuala Lumpur High Court ordered it to be temporarily halted to allow a legal challenge from activists. The U.S., which under President Joe Biden has ramped back up refugee admissions and sought to rally pressure to reverse Myanmar's coup, said it was concerned by the move by Malaysia, with which Washington has enjoyed largely friendly relations in recent years. State Department spokesman Ned Price noted that Malaysia went ahead in spite of a Malaysian court order barring their deportation and in light of ongoing unrest in Burma that, of course, has been taking place since the coup.
We do, and we are concerned by the reported deportation of nearly 1,100 Burmese nationals from Malaysia. This in spite of a Malaysian court order barring their deportation. And in light of ongoing unrest in Burma that, of course, has been taking place since the coup of February 1st. We continue to urge all countries in the region contemplating returning Burmese migrants back to Burma to halt those repatriations until the UNHCR can assess whether these migrants have any protection concerns before being sent back to Burma. Noting that the Burmese military has a long documented history of human rights abuses against members of religious and ethnic minority groups. As for the United States, we will continue life-saving humanitarian assistance to vulnerable populations in need, including those in the region.
Nearly 140 NGOs from 31 countries signed an open letter calling for the UN Security Council to urgently impose an arms embargo on Myanmar after the military coup there earlier this month. The letter said, quote, the United Nations Security Council should urgently impose a global arms embargo on Myanmar in response to the military coup and to deter the junta from committing further abuses. It went on to say, quote, governments that permit arms transfer to Myanmar, including China, India, Israel, North Korea, the Philippines, Russia, and Ukraine, should immediately stop the supply of any weapons, munitions, and related equipment, unquote. 3 of the named countries are currently members of the Security Council. Permanent members China and Russia, who both hold veto power in the body, and non-permanent member India. Human Rights Watch Director Kenneth Roth wrote, given the mass atrocities against the Rohingya, decades of war crimes, and the overthrow of the elected government, the least the UN Security Council can do is impose a global arms embargo on Myanmar. The Security Council should also impose targeted sanctions, global travel bans, and asset freezes on the leadership of the junta and military-owned conglomerates, according to the signatories, which also included dozens of Asian NGOs. The Department of Foreign Affairs, through its Philippine Embassy in Yangon, Myanmar, and its Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, facilitated its 14th coronavirus disease relief flight from Myanmar on Wednesday, bringing home 55 overseas Filipinos. The repatriates were flown home by a Myanmar National Airlines flight arranged since January 15 with the cooperation of Myanmar authorities. The flight arrived at Ninoy Aquino International Airport at 1:25 in the afternoon. Most overseas Filipinos who joined the flight were self-paying passengers, while 2 repatriates were directly assisted by the Philippine government by shouldering their overstaying fees and tickets. The DFA, through its network of 94 Philippine embassies and consulates general across the globe, is always ready to assist our overseas Filipinos who wish to return to the Philippines due to the ongoing COVID-19 restrictions in their host countries, according to Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. in a statement. The Philippine government has consistently arranged flights for its citizens abroad, especially those whose travel plans have been affected by the restrictions brought about by the pandemic. A first batch of 200,000 doses of China's Sinovac vaccines arrived in Thailand, with frontline health workers aimed to be the first group to receive the inoculation. 800,000 doses and 1 million doses will arrive in Thailand also in March and April, respectively. Let's listen in.
วัคซีนคิดว่าเราจะมีจำกัดอยู่แล้วก็มีจัดหาเพิ่มเติมให้มันเพียงพอที่จะสร้างภูมิคุ้มกันหมู่ให้กับคนในประเทศของเราได้นะครับ
การขนส่งวัคซีนจีน 200,000 โดสมาถึงสุวรรณภูมิวันนี้สะท้อนให้เห็นว่าฝ่ายจีนได้ปฏิบัติอย่างจริงจังต่อคำมั่นสัญญาของประธานาธิบดีสีจิ้งผิงที่บอกว่าวัคซีนจีนต้องเป็นสินค้าสาธารณะทั่วโลก
The government's vaccine plan has come under heavy scrutinization by the anti-government protesters after it was revealed that Siam Bioscience, a company owned by the Crown Property Bureau, will be the sole manufacturer of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines in the country, a deal which is seen as a way for the monarchy to begin or to regain their falling popularity. The Prime Minister also said Thailand will start vaccinating priority groups, including health workers, against COVID-19 by the end of this week. The Premier also said that 26 million doses of vaccines on order from AstraZeneca will be ready around May to June. Thailand has also reserved a further 35 million doses from AstraZeneca. Vietnam received its first batch of AstraZeneca vaccine on Wednesday morning, with around 50,000 people in the high-risk group will be prioritized to get the first doses. A Korean air cargo aircraft bearing some 117,000 AstraZeneca doses landed at Tan Son Nhat Airport in Ho Chi Minh City just after 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning, or 10 a.m. The vaccine batch was transported from South Korea, and initial doses will be given in early March. Vietnam's health ministry has recently listed 11 individual groups, including frontline health workers, who will be given priority to get vaccinated. The Southeast Asian nation has ordered 30 million vaccine doses of AstraZeneca vaccine for this year, and it will also receive another 4.9 million doses, aided by COVAX Vaccine Alliance. Now, Malaysian Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin was among the first in the country to get the COVID-19 vaccine, as the country's virus immunization drive kicked off yesterday afternoon. Take a look. The Southeast Asian nation is aiming to vaccinate at least 80% of its 32 million people, with a program covering 3 phases starting this month before ending in February next year. Malaysia has so far reached or secured access to a supply of 66.7 million doses of various vaccines, including 32 million from Pfizer and BioNTech. More than 288,000 COVID-19 cases and 1,076 deaths have been recorded in Malaysia thus far. The country has been battling a resurgent wave of the virus in recent months. And though the number of daily cases has been steadily declining, health authorities still record about 2,500 new infections and several deaths every day. To Vietnam now, where the Japanese expert who was found dead at a hotel in Hanoi was infected with the new COVID-19 variant. Minister of Health Nguyen Thanh Long said. Now, this is the first time the aforesaid strain has been detected in Vietnam, making the fifth COVID-19 variant uncovered in the nation so far. This new variant is less transmissible than the others, but its degree of virulence is unknown. According to the authorities, the deceased Japanese man, aged 54, entered Vietnam on January 17 for a business mission at Mitsui, Vietnam, and was placed in quarantine upon his arrival at Tan So Nhat International Airport in Ho Chi Minh. He twice tested negative for the virus on January 7 and 31. Now, during his stay at a concentrated quarantine facility in the city's Tan Binh district, on February 1, meanwhile, the man flew to Hanoi capital and stayed at a hotel in Tai Ho district from February 1 to the 13th, and during which he traveled back and forth between the hotel and his company. He was found dead in his hotel on February 13, and subsequent tests later proved he had carried the virus. In other news, the head of a controversial Malaysian sugar daddy dating website was charged on Wednesday with causing public alarm after his claims that university students were using the service sparked an outcry. Sugarbook bills itself as a site where romance meets finance and aims to link up older men with younger women, with the man expected to provide financial support for their companions. But it sparked an uproar after releasing statistics purportedly showing thousands of students were using it to make money in the socially conservative Muslim-majority country. The site's founder, Chan Yu Bun, was charged in court in Shah Alam outside Kuala Lumpur with one count of making statements that could cause public fear or alarm through a post related to students' so-called sugar babies. The 34-year-old pleaded not guilty, with his lawyer saying the site had been blocked by Malaysian regulators, meaning the negative effects of his claims about students had been minimized already.
Darren, because Darren was charged this morning under Section 505B of the Penal Code, basically alleging that he has shared a post or data that may have caused fear or anxiety in the community. And we have gathered from the arguments of the prosecutor that the complainant seems to be someone, or the post was read by someone who was at UiTM the very evening that it was published. And that was the report on which they have charged Darren. I think to get him for soliciting or to charge him for soliciting may be a bit of a stretch, but then again, the police are at liberty to investigate and the prosecutor is at liberty to charge for any offence that they feel or they believe has been committed. And Darren is prepared to answer any and all charges.
Efforts to block the platform appear to have had only partial success, and it's still available via some internet providers. Also known by his English name, Darren Chan. He faces up to 2 years in jail if convicted and was set to be released on bail.
lang na-realize bakit ginawa ng Net25 tong Tagisan ng Galing Dance Edition to encourage you people to join.
Very versatile itong grupo na to. Maraming kayang style na gawin. I don't know what else to say. Overwhelming performance.
Shall I say almost perfect? Lahat kayo magagaling. Parang grand finals ngayong araw na ito.
It's a very nice performance.
Para akong nakikinig sa isang foreign singer na kumakanta ng Tagalog.
Parang di ko yata kaya.
Grabe yung angas at yung puso. Merong ka nun eh.
Grabe no, sobrang solid ang episode na ihahain namin para sa inyo. And we guarantee na magiging classic to mga laban na paparating.
Kaninong pangarap ang mananatiling buhay para sa 2 milyong piso? Let's find out dito sa biggest talent competition on Philippine TV and online. This is
Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 Singing and Dance Edition.
Philippine Navy Public Affairs Office Chief Commander Benjo Negranza said that the arrival of the modern platforms like the Jose Rizal-class missile frigates will greatly improve the capabilities of the Philippine Navy to protect the country's vast waters. He also said that when asked late Wednesday regarding the arrival of more modern assets for the Navy, Negranza's last command before taking over the Navy Public Office was the research vessel BRP Gregorio Velasquez. Meanwhile, Navy Captain Jonathan Zata, the former skipper of the BRP Dagupan, said he is proud to witness the Philippine Navy's steady transformation into a more capable force. Earlier, the Philippine Navy said it will be holding the arrival ceremony for the second guided missile frigate, the BRP Antonio Luna, at Pier 13, South Harbor, Manila, on Friday. The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, on Wednesday reported that over 45,000 workers in the education sector from both private and public schools have benefited from the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, or CAMP. Citing a report of the Bureau of Local Employment, or BLE, Rolly Francia, DOLE Information and Publication Service Director, said that a total of 45,715 education personnel, including teachers, have received financial assistance worth over 228 million pesos out of the 300 million peso budget. And this came after Senator Sherwin Gatchalian questioned the alleged slow distribution of cash aid to teachers and non-teaching personnel who were affected by the pandemic. The DOLE official added that of the total allocation, there's still a balance of 62 million pesos. He also said that over 14,000 more workers from the education sector will benefit from the program. Under CAMP, beneficiaries will be receiving one-time cash assistance amounting to 5,000 pesos for those affected by the pandemic. The Department of Health expert panel member, Dr. Ronjean Solante, said that those who are vaccinated against the coronavirus should be in good health, have no symptoms of a cold or fever, and they should be psychologically prepared to receive the vaccine to prevent any side effects after the inoculation. Let's listen in.
So, bago magpapabakuna, no? Tama yung mga sinabi mo na tama yung oras na matulog, no? Talagang preparahan mo siya, maganda ang walang tomas, no? Walang ubo, walang lagnat, at saka ang importante dito, psychologically ready ka sa pagbabakuna dahil tanggalin mo rin yung takot mo dahil sa bakuna, dahil minsan pag nandun pa rin yung fear mo, yung hesitations, baka pag ini-inject yan, may mga ganong klaseng kliyente na pag ini-inject, at talagang natatakot at saka mas lalong ma-magnify yung mga side effect dahil hindi pa sila ready na hindi pa nila natanggap na itong bakuna, napaka-importante at saka yung psychology na safe at effective ang bakuna.
In the Laging Handa special public briefing, COVID-19 vaccines explained, or Food and Drug Administration Philippines Director General Dr. Eric Domingo said that the China-based Sinovac vaccine can be used for essential workers and other community members aged 18 to 59 years. He also said that the vaccines from AstraZeneca and Pfizer would be suitable for senior citizens like President Duterte, who will be prioritized in the national vaccination program. Again, let's listen in.
Inaaral natin yan kung kanino siya maganda at kung kanino po mas hindi pwede. For example, ang Pfizer, bawal sa mga may allergy. Ito naman pong Sinovac, nakita natin na para sa mga mamamayan katulad natin sa community, ang efficacy rate po niya ay napakataas, 63% to 91% po yan. Doon lang po kasi sa mga health workers, yung doktor at nurse, na nag-aalaga talaga ng mga orderly doon sa ward, na nag-aalaga talaga ng COVID-19 dahil napakataas ng exposure nila, sa kanila 50.4% po ang efficacy. Kaya ang sabi namin, baka hindi ito yung pinakamaganda para dito sa health workers na ito. But definitely po, for members in the community, yung pong 18 to 59 years old, mataas po yung efficacy rate niya. Hanggang sabi namin, umaabot po hanggang 91%. Well, sa ngayon po kasi, ang mga clinical trial ginagawa yan usually in stages, So usually, umpisahan talaga sa 18 to 59 years old. Kaya hanggang ngayon po wala pang bakuna kahit sa bata. Kahit po yung AstraZeneca or yung Pfizer, hindi pa po yan ginagamit sa bata kasi ginagawa pa nila yung pag-aaral nila para sa mga bata. Ito pong Sinovac, ang natapos na pong pinadala sa aming results ay yung 18 to 59. At sa kasalukuyan, ginagawa po nila yung 60 and above. So at this time, since ito po yung data na meron tayo at sigurado tayo na effective sa ganitong age range, sa kanila po muna natin binigyan ng approval. And of course, as the data comes in, pag napakita naman po na safe din siya sa 60 and above, idadagdag po natin yon, and possibly later, yung mga bata rin naman po on the other end, yung mga less than 18. So at this time, the studies that have been performed show na talagang sa 18 at 59, sigurado po tayo sa kanyang safety at saka efficacy. Well, kami po kasi talagang may bibigay lang namin ang rekomendasyon namin based on the scientific evidence at hand. And as of now, ang evidence po shows that it's good for 18 to 59. At yun pong mas mababa ang efficacy rate niya sa ating mga health workers. Pero I'm sure sila Secretary Galvez naman po at yung team niya na nagpo-procure ng bakuna ay ginagawa naman po lahat ng paraan. Dahil hindi lang naman po ito ang approved na vaccine sa Pilipinas. Binayagan na rin po natin ang Pfizer at saka AstraZeneca at may mga iba pa pong applications ng mga vaccine na palagay natin darating sa mga susunod po na mga araw. Totoo po yun. Bawat study po kasi talagang magkakaiba. Iba po yung taong gagamitan, iba po yung lugar, iba po yung kanyang situation. Katulad po nung study nila sa Brazil, talaga pong ang tinignan lamang nila doon ay mga health workers na nag-aalaga ng mga may COVID-19. At nakita na doon sa grupong yon, 50.4% ang kanyang efficacy rate. At the same time, doon naman po sa Indonesia at saka sa Turkey, mga mamamayan naman sa komunidad na 18 to 59 years old ang tinignan nila. At napakita na sa mga grupong yon, mas mataas po ang efficacy rate. So talagang nakikita natin ito at natutulungan naman po tayo ng datos na to para piliin kung kanino talaga mas nababagay ang bawat isang produkto, gamot o kaya bakuna. Lahat naman po kasi talaga ng gamot, meron po talaga siyang indication, may contraindication, at merong taong pwede at merong taong hindi.
Meanwhile, President Duterte announced that he is mandating local government units to provide free face masks to their constituents to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Now, the president gave the fresh directive to LGUs in a public address delivered on Wednesday night as he acknowledged that wearing a face mask can save people from a lot of trouble. President Duterte's directive came amid the pending arrival of COVID-19 vaccines in the country. The use of a face mask is one of the government's health protocols that Filipinos need to follow amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Some LGUs have already begun distributing free face masks even before the president's latest order. Earlier, the Department of Health reminded Filipinos to wear face masks and face shields to protect themselves against the coronavirus. Apart from the use of face masks and face shields, the government keeps on reminding the public to continue observing physical distancing and frequent hand washing. In other news, the Philippine government has deposited the instrument of ratification of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, or TPNW, or the Nuclear Weapon Ban Treaty on February 18, making the Philippines the 53rd state to ratify the said accord. In a statement dated February 23, the Philippine mission to the UN in New York said the TPNW would represent efforts towards the universalization of global norms against nuclear weapons. For the Philippines, the Nuclear Ban Treaty fortifies the nuclear disarmament architecture. It represents the universalization of the hope for the elimination of nuclear weapons and is in line with the specific provision of the Philippine Constitution and the Treaty on the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone. It said the Philippines signed the treaty on September 20, 2017 in New York. And last February 21, the Philippine Senate adopted the resolution concurring with the ratification of the TPNW. The resolution was introduced and sponsored by Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel III, co-sponsored by all other senators, and was unanimously adopted with 23 votes.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas! A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Probinsya. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to thank our help outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back. The need to manage digital and physical currency along with ensuring an inclusive payment system led to the creation of a new sector in the central bank, which is provided for under its charter amendment. In a virtual briefing on Wednesday, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno said the newly established Payments and Currency Management Sector, or PCMS, will be led by Deputy Governor Namerto Tangonan. He also said, quote, the sector shall ensure a well-functioning payment and cash ecosystem that supports long-run economic growth. Now, Diokno said creation of PCMS is in line with the central bank's digital payments transformation roadmap for 2020 to 23 that targets to provide an efficient, safe, and efficient payments ecosystem. The BSP also said Tangonan has more than 28 years of experience in digital and traditional financial services, telecommunications, technology, financial inclusion, and consulting services. Now, before this stint at the BSP, he led a 6-year program funded by the U.S. Aid or Agency for International Development for e-peso activity, a bilateral initiative aimed to increase electronic payments in the Philippines in a bid to have a more inclusive economic growth. Vietnam has attracted $5.46 billion in foreign direct investment in the first 2 months this year, equal to 84.4% of the same period last year, according to the Foreign Investment Agency under the Ministry of Planning and Investment. Of those figures, foreign investors committed to $3.31 billion in 126 new projects, down 74.8% and down 33.9% in terms of numbers of projects and capital volume, respectively. The volume of realized FDI witnessed a year-on-year increase of 2%, reaching $2.5 billion. The processing and manufacturing took the lead in luring FDI among 17 sectors, with $3 billion accounting for 55.7%, followed by electricity production and distribution with $1.44 billion, real estate $485 million, and science and technology $153 million. Now, among 46 nations and territories investing in Vietnam, Japan ranked first with $1.64 billion, accounting for 30%. Singapore and the Republic of Korea occupied the second and third position with $1.07 billion and $1.05 billion, respectively. Hiring of workers with digital skills has grown substantially in the last 3 years across the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Region, or APEC region, according to a recent report issued by the APEC Human Resources Development Working Group and received here in the Philippines on Tuesday. Research by LinkedIn and Burning Glass Technologies in the APEC Closing the Digital Skills Gap report, Trends and Insights, has found the digital hiring rate across the region increased threefold between 2016 and 2019. While the pandemic led to a hiring slowdown in the first quarter of 2020, the report predicts continued strong demand for digital talent, with a greater than one-fold increase in March last year compared to the previous year. The report also stresses the importance of reskilling workers in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, as many are looking for new opportunities and it is necessary to have at least baseline digital skills. It's also critical to equip new workers with digital skills so they can thrive in the workforce. Singapore launched what it's billed as a coronavirus secure hotel and meeting complex where visitors communicate via intercom through glass panels as the Asian financial hub slowly opens up to the world for business. Short-stay business travelers to Singapore will be able to avoid the official 2-week quarantine rule if they stay at Connect at Changi, a purpose-built facility near Changi Airport. They will, however, be required to remain within the facility for the duration of their stay to prevent possible transmission to the wider community. Take a look.
then the benefit they have of this facility is they don't have to serve the additional quarantine time in Singapore. After the initial short waiting period at the facility to wait for the results of their on-arrival test, they are able to get to business immediately. So there is, in that respect, a significant saving in time on their respect. Keith has already pointed out that what is very self-evident to us, the economy was hurting, the aviation industry was hurting, the food and beverage and hospitality industry was hurting. We needed to find a way to kickstart the economy.
But to come here for the meetings, you have to adhere to the requirements, which is you cannot leave the facility on your own once you've entered. And this is down to things like the doors are one-way. So if you come from the land side, the doors are two-way. You come from the air side. Once you enter the facility, you cannot leave until someone lets you out. You have to stay within the facility.
Upon arrival at the airport, guests will be bubble wrapped, meaning they are tested and then ferried directly to the facility. Now, the complex will initially have 150 guest rooms, which will later be expanded to 600, each with a shelf outside where staff can leave meals without coming into contact with guests. A red light stays illuminated outside their room until their test comes back negative, and when they can go about their businesses within the complex. They are tested regularly during their stay and prior to departure. Initially, the center will have 40 meeting rooms where the visiting executives are separated from those they are meeting by glass panels and communicate via intercom to cut transmission risks. This will later be expanded to 170 meeting rooms where business people can meet executives who are based locally or have flown in from other countries. A Singapore-based medical technology firm has already booked to use the facility for up to 30 of its senior executives.
May pera sa basura, lalo na kung magagawa ang iba't ibang bagay mula sa mga recyclable material na inaakala ng iba na itatapon na. May ilang barangay sa bansa ang nagre-recycle ng basura at makikita ang iba't ibang bagay na gawa sa basura. Dekorasyon sa bahay, sa mga proyektong ito, nagiging malinis ang kapaligiran bukod sa mayroon pang pagkakakitaan.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Final volume 450. FI mo to 100%. Traffic ban. Construction eh.
Welcome back. 10 orangutans have been airlifted back to their natural habitat on Indonesia's Borneo island in the first release of the apes into the wild for a year due to the dangers of coronavirus infection. A group of 10 apes were shuttled inside transport cages encased in nettings, and they took to the air this month to avoid days-long land and sea routes that could expose them to the coronavirus. Let's take a look.
Mengetahui bagaimana orangutan terjangkit COVID-19 adalah dengan cara melihat gejala klinis dari orangutan tersebut. Apabila orangutan menunjukkan gejala pernapasan, bisa jadi dia terinfeksi dari COVID-19. Serta, jika salah satu karyawan dinyatakan positif COVID-19, maka akan dilakukan tracing terhadap orangutan yang berkontak erat terhadap karyawan tersebut.
Radu Albot of Moldova fended off a spirited challenge from Australia's John Patrick Smith with a 6-2, 3-6, 6-1 win for a place in the round of 16 at the Singapore Open. Albot took the first set comfortably, but Smith fought back and held his serve to win the first game of the second set. The Moldovan soon found himself 3 break points down in the second game, but hauled himself back into contention with solid ground strokes to level the set at 1-1. It was level at 2-2 before Smith broke away and closed out the second set in the 9th game, winning 6-3. Albot broke Smith's serve in the third set and went 2-0 ahead before widening his lead to 4-1 and sealing victory in an hour and 29 minutes with a big serve followed by a forehand swing volley. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nation. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow. We live in interesting times.
Kung ika'y magiging akin, di ka na muling luluha pa. Pangakong di ka lolokohin ng puso kong nagmamahal. Hi, ito po sa City. Abangan niyo po ako ngayong linggo sa Himig ng Lahi. Alas 8 ng gabi dito lang sa Net 25. Na rin, pangakong ikaw lang ang iibigin magpakailanman.
Hindi ako again sa inyong relasyon. Naalala lang ang mga kahapon kung saan tinapon na lang ang dating pag-ibig. Kung pagbibigyan mo pa ako salamat, pero malabo na ako'y maging mapala. Ginawa ko ng lahat, hindi pa ba sapat na ako'y walang pag-asa, di pinagtapat. Kaya ako
Hello po sa inyong lahat. Ako nga pala si Ford Valencia. Abangan niyo po ako sa Letters in Music bilang guest performer. Sabado po yan, Feb 27, 1 to 2 p.m. At syempre, dito lamang po yan sa Net 25. See you!
Ano man ang iyong mithiin, maaari
Matinding pagsubok may danasin, pagbangon ay karamay ako. Noon pa may itinurit, di ka na iba sa akin. Kaya na sa ating pagsulang, pangarap natin abutin. Ano man ang adhikain, katuwang mo ay ako pa rin. Tuwid at mabuting ayunin, ipagmamalaki natin. Ganda ng ating kultura, sining natin at musika, kailan may tatangkilikin, iisang ating damdamin. Isa tayo sa bawat hapangin, isa tayo tuwing may abutin. Di ba't noon pa man, alam mo yan since day one, ikaw ako tayo, we are one. Magkasama tayo, hirapan ang danasin, ligaya tagumpay, tayong magkapiling. Di ba't noon pa man, alam mo yan since day one, ikaw ako tayo, we are sa mahaba nating lakbayin, ako pa rin ang kapiling. Sa paglipad, sa pagtawid dagat, ako pa rin ang kaakibat. Saan man tayo abuti, katapatan isulong natin, dakila nating hangarin, itataguyod diringgin. Isa tayo sa bawat hapangin, isa tayo tuwing may abutin. Di ba't noon pa man, alam mo yan since day one, ikaw ako tayo, we are one. Tagumpay natin, tiyak na kakamtin, panalangin natin, tunay na diringgin. Di ba noon pa man, alam mo yan since day one, ikaw ako tayo, we are one. Ikaw ako tayo, we are
Laging saludo sana sa harapan.
Kung may masigigit pa sa salitang salamat, yun ang dapat sa inyong humaharap at bumubuhat sa gitna ng kalamidad. Hindi kayo natinag, patuloy nagsilbi at umalalay, di umilag sa banta ng sakit, tapos di makauwi. Sa pamilya niyong mahal, kayo'y nagbibigay ngiti, ang siyang dahilan kaya gumigising ka sa umaga. Litrato ng